Yeah, in this short video, I want to share with you some things to really avoid saying to someone close to you who's experienced a recent loss. It's tough during these times because someone we care about is going through some really tough emotional pain, and we want to make it better for them. And also, at some times during these experiences, we're not quite sure what our footing is, what our position is in order to help bring comfort. So that's the kind of the purpose of this short video. When we know of someone who's in acute grief, not complicated grief, but acute grief, it's really natural for us to want to help them and comfort them. We want to help them somehow ease the pain, reduce their discomfort, to make them feel a little better. But you have to understand, life rarely prepares us to do this in a way that is helpful or therapeutic, especially for those who are experiencing deep and acute grief. We want to, because no one wants a close friend or family member to be so uncomfortable dealing with the emotional pain of loss. But we're not quite sure of what's the best positioning in order for us to help them. First, to remember, each person grieves differently. And certainly, while there are many commonalities to the experience of grief, there's also many different and individual experiences and reactions to grief. Everybody grieves differently. So don't expect people to react in the same way to their grief, nor to the ways you express your condolences. What should you do when a close friend or family member is grieving? And many people are at a loss for words when attempting to comfort someone who is in grief. But that's actually okay. Sometimes just being there is enough. Sometimes just a warm hug is enough. A simple "I'm sorry" may be quite sufficient to provide some comfort for the grieving person. But whatever you say or do, remember that you cannot take away their pain. You cannot and you should not try and fix them. But here's some things that you should never say to a person who's grieving, because they're neither helpful nor comforting. In the next several slides, I'll present to you 5 of the most common expressions that are unintended to provide discomfort and more pain. So avoid them. And the first one, classically, is "I know how you feel." Actually, you don't know how they feel because their grief is unique. Even if you've lost loved ones in your life, your grief and your loss and your experience are unique to you. And what you have experienced is not necessarily what the person who is in grief is experiencing or feeling at all. So such an expression is not realistic to the person who's grieving. So don't say it. Number 2, time will heal this. No, time will not heal this. Grief is actually a lifelong journey, and there's no real end to grief. The person will go through many stages that hopefully will ultimately come to restoration of functioning in life again. However, their life is now changed and will forever be changed. These scars are forever. There's no such thing as time healing grief because grief cannot be healed. Grief changes people in their lives forever. Third, you'll be fine. Well, hopefully yes, but you may be setting an expectation that's too high for the person in the moment. And in the moment, the person who is grieving very likely does not feel as if he or she will be fine, nor do they see being fine in the foreseeable future. So try not to make it your business to establish goals for their journey in and through grief. 4, your deceased loved one or friend would not want you to be upset. Well, how do you know that? You don't know that. And what you've now done is placed the person who's mourning into a state of potential guilt. The person in grief may feel that they're being selfish by mourning and that they're disrespecting their newly deceased loved one or friend by doing something that their loved one or friend would never want them to do. Yeesh. Don't go there. 5thly, mourn for a while, but then go on with your life. What a horrible mandate to give someone who is in acute grief. Don't tell them this. You've now suggested a time frame for their grief. And what is for a while? What is the correct period of time for mourning that doesn't end too soon or last too long? There isn't one. So none of these previous statements will help those who are grieving. And while the intention of the sympathizer might be to help, it's not really helpful at all. It's much better to simply say, "I'm sorry," than to offer any of the previous statements. And there's a support for the bereaved as attested by the hundreds who were surveyed who were suffering recent loss. And these are the ones that were most popular, that the far majority of people researched responded with. Number one, hugs may be more comforting than words. Sometimes just not saying anything says everything. Simply listening is helpful, what we in psychology call active listening. And then refrain from judging whether feelings expressed are right or wrong or good or bad. They just are. Funerals and other leave-taking rituals can offer a framework for the beginning of coping with the loss. And social support is as critical during the later course of grief as it is during the initial period. And then organized support groups give opportunities to share stories and encourage. Bereavement really is an opportunity for growth, but ultimately, it can promote gradual movement toward accommodating the loss and freeing up energy bound to the past, ultimately. And loss can be transformative in ways that place it in a context of growth. And turning to inner sources of creativity can give form to grief, such as the expressive arts like journaling, painting, poems. And lastly, people maintain connections with the deceased through memories and personal and social rituals. And these would include holidays, gravesite visits, rituals such as remembering the lost one during holidays and birthdays or what have you. And of course, a memory box. So that's it. Hopefully it's informative to help you get an assured footing when you experience someone close to you who is in grief. And I'm with grateful appreciation to the American Academy of Grief Counseling. What a great organization. And there's their website at the bottom, and visit it if you can. And I always like to leave this talk with a poem by Maya Angelou. And this is from her work, When Great Trees Fall. And in the poem it says, "And when great souls die, after a period peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, they existed. We can be and be better, for they existed." And the message of Maya's poem is, let the existence of the absent inspire you. Okay, thanks. Until next time.